Welcome everybody, this is another lesson on Advanced Phrasal Verbs, which is a book by Cambridge University Press, and the authors are Michael McCarthy and Felicity O'Dell. In my opinion, it's the best book available for advanced phrasal verbs. There are dictionaries where they can be this big, just containing phrasal verbs. So if you don't know many phrasal verbs, you are missing out on, there's a good phrasal verb, you're missing out on a large proportion of the English language. And it's a proportion which native English speakers use all the time. And it's because it's found right at the beginning in children's literature. It's actually a good place to find a lot of phrasal verbs, kids' books. But also another good place is this particular book by Michael McCarthy and Felicity O'Dell. So please buy this book or find a copy of it somewhere, wherever you can. And the exercises for today's lesson are from chapters 41 to 45. So if you would like some exercises on this vocabulary, you can find some in this book. It's a great book. Okay, so let's get started. Chapter 41, I think it was mostly about human feelings and phrasal verbs connected to feelings. So if you have something against someone, and it's always against someone, it means you bear a grudge against that person. It means you hold some kind of resentment against that person. You don't like that person for some specific reason. And you can have something against them or hold something against them, and they're both equivalent. They both mean the same thing. And it is a grudge. If you look up a grudge in the dictionary, you'll see what that is. It's when you harbour resentment against someone. Okay, a second phrasal verb in this chapter on feelings was go off, in the sense of stop liking. Now be careful, because this phrasal verb go off can be used in a number of different ways. A bomb can go off, which means explode. An alarm can go off, which means start making a noise, yeah? An alarm clock can go off. But in this chapter it was about when you stop liking something. You can say, I have gone off chocolate recently. I don't know, maybe you have a cold and the taste of chocolate isn't quite the same as it was before. So you can say, I have gone off chocolate. But you can go off anything. It doesn't have to be food or drink. You can say, I've gone off that particular restaurant, or I've gone off that nightclub, or I've gone off learning English even, I think would be acceptable in everyday English. So this one just means stop liking. If you work yourself into a state, this is very similar to the phrasal verbs down here, I would say, right at the bottom here. If you work yourself into a state, you get yourself all stressed out, you get yourself all worked up, and that means that you exaggerate your own feelings of annoyance, of stress, until they reach gigantic proportions. So when I'm trying to sort out a YouTube lesson, when I'm trying to sort out my equipment, usually I work myself into a state. I get really stressed out because microphones never work, lights always shine off the board with an annoying glare, and I do this on my own, and it doesn't matter what I do, how much I try, there will always be something like this piece of light here, which I can see on my phone. So it's really annoying. And then what really stresses me out is when somebody comments on it under the video, so never do that. You'll find yourself quickly banned from making any comments on this channel. So I work myself into a state. I get carried away, yeah? I get stressed and I get carried away, and suddenly I lose control of my emotions. And that's really what work yourself into a state means. It means you get yourself more stressed out and more stressed out until eventually you're really frustrated. Now, if you're in a trance, you can snap out of a trance. I mean a hypnotic trance. If you're in a trance, you can snap out of it, which means suddenly wake up. But we use this snap out of it to mean stop being obsessed with something, or stop, I mean, if somebody's really obsessed with It could be anything. They could be really obsessed with the latest piece of news. Who knows? They could be really obsessed with some kind of conflict going on in one part of the world. And they always talk about it. You might say to your friend, snap out of it. Come on, stop repeating these words over and over again about this conflict. It's almost like you're in a trance. It's like you're hypnotized and you've got to wake up, snap out of it. But it can be used with any kind of obsession, this one. It doesn't have to be an obsession about the news. It could be an obsession about a girl. Okay, brim with is an excellent one. It's very positive. If you're brimming with enthusiasm, you are full of enthusiasm. And the word brim is closely connected to the word rim. The brim of the glass is the edge of the glass. The rim of the glass, basically. I can't see any difference. And the brim of the hat is the edge of the hat. So that's why it's related to being full. Because when you say full to the brim, that means completely full. And if you are brimming with enthusiasm, you're full to the brim with enthusiasm. So it's used for positive emotions. When you're full of those positive emotions, you can be brimming with energy, brimming with enthusiasm, brimming with satisfaction, whatever it is. It's got to be positive though. It's never really negative. Okay, if you give into or cave into someone, and you could give into or cave into something like the kidnapper's demands, that means you acquiesce, you yield, you say, okay, fair enough. I mean, if you give in to the kidnapper's demands, you pay the ransom money, you pay the money and you give in to the kidnapper. It's basically like surrender. Both of these are surrender, give into or cave into something. But you could even give into the temptation of something, meaning that you surrender to that temptation and you go and act on those desires. Okay, the next ones are usually used in negative feelings when you're choking back the tears or you're fighting back the anger inside you. You're trying to bottle up those negative emotions, and that's why I've written bottle up underneath. Bottle up isn't quite the same. It's not exactly the same, because bottle up, it sounds to me like bottle up is over a very long period of time when you bottle up emotions and you don't express those emotions. But you usually choke back the tears right at the moment when you're fighting against this emotion. And one emotion will win out over the other emotion, and so there's another phrasal verb you might want to remember. But you choke back your tears or you choke back your resentment, and it means you hold it back inside yourself and try not to express it. You choke back your tears, you try not to show anybody that you're upset, you try and stop yourself from crying. Young kids very often choke back their tears when they're trying to stop themselves from making a fuss and working themselves into a state and getting too emotional. So yeah, choke back or fight back negative emotions. If you're bowled over, this is very positive. It means you're absolutely delighted about something. You could be bowled over by your exam results. You could be bowled over by winning a football match. It could be anything. If you don't feel up to going to work today, it means not capable of going to work today, probably because you're too sick. That's what it sounds like to me. But you can also say, I am not up to going into work today, meaning I'm not well enough again. So these are usually used when you're too sick, but it could be that you're too tired. It could be slightly different, but not capable of doing something. You don't feel up to doing something. If something shakes you up, an accident, a car crash, failing all of your exams, it means that it upsets you, and it has a massive effect on your mentality, on your psychology. So accidents, of course, they shake you up. A death in the family might shake you up as well. It could be anything really, but it means really upset you, and so much so that maybe you're on the verge of a nervous breakdown, something like that. Okay, if a feeling comes over you, if a feeling of I suppose this could be anything. A feeling of joy can come over you, or a feeling of anger can come over you. It totally dominates you. So whatever that feeling is or that emotion is, it's when it takes complete control of your heart and your mind. And we very often say, I don't know what came over me, which means I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what emotion or feeling suddenly took control of my soul. It's like something takes over, yeah? Takes control of you. And that's why it's come over. I don't know what came over me. I don't know what took over my soul. Worked up and stressed out, they both mean stressed, annoyed, frustrated. So I get very worked up when I'm trying to make these videos and things don't go how I want them to go. They never do. Okay, if something runs away with you, if an emotion runs away with you, my anger got the better of me, my anger ran away with me, but it means that, again, it's like come over, it totally took control of your soul. You let something get out of control, you let an emotion get out of control and it ran away with you. So it's when you get carried away. Very similar to when you get carried away. Get carried away could be positive or negative. I should make that clear, but run away with, yeah, I think your excitement can run away with you as well. It could be a lot of different emotions run away with and get carried away. So if you have any more questions about that, put them under the video. Okay, if you treat your wife to a lovely meal in a French restaurant, you spoil her with a lovely meal in a French restaurant. It's when you do your best to give someone a special present or a special treat. You might treat the kids to a day at the park, something like that. And if you're out going to lots of nightclubs and bars, you might start at a restaurant and then go on to another place. That's how we use this one. When you have a list of places that you're going to go to, a number of places, and you start at the restaurant and then you go on to the cinema and then you go on to the nightclub and then you go on to the bar, whatever. Now, time passes by and time can slip by, and in that case it means time is going by unnoticed. And it very often sounds to me, events in your life can pass you by. And we say if life is passing you by, that means it's going by unnoticed and you're not living to the maximum. You're not living to the full. So it can mean go by unnoticed, pass by, especially slip by. If you slip by a group of people, you try and get past them without anybody seeing you. So pass by or slip by means go past unnoticed. If you hang out with friends, it just means you're loitering somewhere, you're chilling somewhere, you're chilling out with your friends somewhere. Could be out on the streets, it could be at home, it could be in a park, but it just means be with a group of people, to hang out with a group of people. And yeah, it would be with, hang out with someone. If something is a letdown, it's a great disappointment. So your exam results could be a great letdown. I hope they're not. But please don't forget this one, let someone down, disappoint them. If you call in on friends or drop by friends or pop round friends or swing by a friend's house or swing round a friend's house, all of them mean go and pay a flying visit, basically. All of these mean pay a flying visit. Pay someone a flying visit. If you blow a friend out, that means you don't meet them even though you agreed to meet them. And this is non-romantic. This is for friends, blow someone out. Whereas if you stand someone up, that's for romantic meetings, but it's exactly the same. It means you've arranged to meet someone for a date and then you don't turn up, you don't show up, you stand them up. And so that is romantic, whereas blow someone out would be friends. I've got a friend who always blows us out, even though he says he's going to arrive, but he never comes. Okay, if you hook up with a few friends, it just means you go and meet them. It's just like go out and meet a few friends. It could mean that you met them without expecting to. You hooked up with them completely unexpectedly. But that's not necessary. But it often does. I think you often say, oh, I hooked up with so-and-so last night. I hooked up with that guy last night. Or with that group of friends. It just means, yeah, you were hanging out with them. Very similar to hang out with. Now, if you sleep off the effects of a binge, for example, a long alcoholic binge, you're sleeping off the effects, so when you wake up, you're sober. You're sleeping off the alcohol. You're sleeping so that it gets rid of the alcohol. But you could even sleep off a really big meal. If you're feeling really fat after a meal and you decide to sleep it off, it just means sleep so that when you wake up in the morning, you feel normal again. You've digested all that food. If the bar turns you away, that means they don't let you into the bar when you go out to go in. When you expect to go in there, they say, nope, you're not coming in. Maybe there's too many people inside. Maybe there are too many people inside and they turn you away. But they can turn you away for any reason at all. It doesn't matter. It just means that they don't let you in when you try and go in. You might have a friend who comes to your house, but you don't like him and you turn him away. Yeah, so you can turn people away as well. If you roll up at a nightclub late, that means you roll up, you turn up, you show up later than expected. If you are getting into windsurfing, that means you've just become interested in that hobby. So we use this get into for hobbies that you just start becoming interested in. If you shoot off or dash off or head off or set off, it means you go, and you go very quickly. You haven't got much time, and so you have to shoot off. So in the last phrasal verb lesson, I had to shoot off because I had a lesson. And I'm afraid that was the only time that I could have done that lesson, and so there was no chance of me doing it at some other period of time. Okay, if you hang about, if you say to someone, hang about, hold on, both of them mean wait, okay? Hang about also means wait. It means wait a second, hang about. And it's used with an exclamation mark because it's an imperative, it's an order. Now, if your nose is bunged up or blocked up, I think this one is health. If you've got a bunged up nose or a blocked up nose, it means it's really congested. Yeah, it means all of your nose is congested. But you can even say the road is blocked up, because you can say the road is congested, right? You can say your nose is congested, and you can say the road is congested. And so you can say it's blocked up with traffic. But I wouldn't say the road was bunged up. But for nose, it's perfect. I've got a bunged up nose. Yeah, maybe you just can't breathe through your nose, and you say I've got a bunged up nose. If you break out in a sweat, you start sweating profusely. If you break out in a rash suddenly appears on your skin out of nowhere. It's like it comes out of nowhere. If you pass on your infection, if you've got flu and you pass it on to your friend, unfortunately you give them the infection. You infect your friend. If an old condition or disease flares up, it means it comes back. So this is for when it's the return of a disease, or the return of flu, or could be the return of any kind of condition that you've suffered from in your life. Now, if you've got a very large swelling, perhaps you've had an injury at football and your foot is injured, your ankle is injured. My foot a few months ago swelled up. Yeah, it got really swollen. It swelled up to it was really massive. And the swelling didn't go down until about 2 weeks later. So it stayed with me for a long time. And that just means the swelling reduces in size. Now, if an injury, if a large cut heals over, that means it gets better. You get a scab first of all, and then over time that comes off. So I very often get cuts when I'm playing football again, and it's because we play on AstroTurf, and it takes a little while to heal over, usually about a week. Now, if you drop off or nod off or doze off, all of these mean sleep. In fact, I'd say they mean fall asleep. There are certain nuances here, because it seems to me that you nod off usually for a short time, whereas drop off sounds quite quick to me. He dropped off, he fell asleep, whereas he nodded off. It sounds like you're going to have only a nap, a small nap. And if you're dozing off, I think that usually happens in the morning, where we usually use the word doze in the morning, having a doze. And yeah, you just doze off for a few more minutes before you have to get up. Now, if something builds up, it increases or gets stronger. So you can build up military forces on the border, but you can also take vitamins or vitamins. How do you pronounce that word? I'm not sure. I think one's American, one's British. But if you take vitamins, vitamin supplements, I don't, but some people take vitamin supplements to build themselves up, to make themselves stronger, to make their body stronger. Personally, I don't like vitamin supplements. Now, if some exercise really takes it out of you, that means it really knackers you out. It really tires you out. Look at these phrasal verbs down here. But you could also say this about a course of medicine, some treatment. You might say that medicine really took it out of me. For example, chemotherapy really takes it out of the patients. Yeah, the patients look really, really worse for wear afterwards. They look really sick after having this particular medicine. So it takes it out of them. It destroys the body. If something knocks you out, this is probably an anaesthetic. Hopefully the anaesthetic will knock you out. It will make you pass out. It will make you black out. So it knocks you out, it means it puts you to sleep. And a boxer can knock out his opponent if he gets a good punch in. So wear someone out, wipe someone out, knacker someone out, tire someone out, and do someone in all mean make somebody really tired. So it's normally exercise that does this to you, but it could be medicine as well, which is wearing you out. It could be the disease, which has done you in. Okay, if somebody is burnt out, this is usually used as an adjective, and it's normally used when it's the stress from overwork. It's when you work too much and then you become burnt out. So if we don't have holidays, we get very burnt out, and it's why we need a rest. And if someone is washed out, usually this means very pale-faced, very sick, not necessarily from overwork, but maybe from not having a good diet or not having a good lifestyle, something like that. Now, if you huddle up, usually this means you keep warm by holding your knees into your chest. But you could huddle up with other people. And it's a bit like, for this reason, cuddle up to someone. We've got the up to, just like go up to, walk up to, run up to, and you can even cuddle up to someone, meaning get closer to that person, usually the person you love, but you cuddle up to them to keep warm, or maybe to, well, it could be anything, couldn't it, really? Okay, if you stretch out your arm, you reach out for something. That's what stretch out means. Stick out is not normally when you're reaching to take something. Stick out, you can stick out your head, stick your head out the window, but you can stick your arm out the window, and then you're not reaching for anything, are you? You're just sticking it out the window. You can stick your legs out the window. If you're in the car and you've got your legs, your feet hanging out of the window, then we'd say stick your legs out the window. So it's not reach, stick out. Stretch out is reach out, but stick out is just put out. Spread out, I think we usually use this for when you spread out your things on the desk, meaning spread them out in a long row, or just, you know, your books or whatever it is that you've got. But you can even spread out your arms, yeah? Spread out your arms would be like this, in order to cuddle someone, in order to embrace someone. So you can spread your arms out, certainly. You can bend over, yeah? Bend down, bend forwards, they're all the same thing. If you curl up it like a little baby curls up, or like a cat. My cat's just down there at the moment, and he's all curled up and he's sleeping on my chair because I'm not on my chair for a change, and then he likes to take it and curl up on the chair and doze off. If you screw up your face, it's usually because of disgust, but it might not be. You might be screwing up your face in order to squint or make out a sign that's in the distance or something like that. But screw up your face, you can see all the wrinkles around the face when somebody screws up their face. There's lots of lines. So it can also mean to mess something up, to screw something up, especially in American slang. So be careful with that one. It can mean to make a mistake, to screw something up. If you warm up or loosen up before a football match, that means you're doing all of this, yeah, you're kind of doing that, maybe you're doing that to warm up your neck muscles, yeah. It basically means just loosen all the muscles ready for the game. If you've got turkey in the freezer, or chicken, or burgers, or sausages, you might need to thaw them out. You will need to thaw them out before you eat them. And this just means become not frozen anymore. When something is frozen and it thaws out, it becomes, well, it gets warmer and becomes normal room temperature. But you can also use it meaning to warm up. So you might say, my wife and I were very cold on the journey, and so we decided to go into a restaurant to thaw out. Yeah, to go into a cafe, have a coffee and thaw out. And then it would mean to warm up. So it can be used metaphorically as well as in the kitchen. If you tense up, your muscles tense up like that. Your muscles suddenly get all tense. So you tense up when you're nervous, usually. You want to, it's the opposite of loosen up, really, isn't it? Loosen up, your muscles are all loose. But tense up and you're all uptight, you're all stressed, you're all tense. If you double up or keel over, now these are interesting, these ones. You can double up with laughter, but you can usually, well, very often, you double up because of pain, and keel over is definitely because of pain. And when you double up, you do this, you bend over when you double up, usually because something's in your stomach. So if you double up with laughter, you're doubling up, you're bending over because you're laughing so hard. But if you double up from pain, maybe from a pain in the heart, You can also say he keeled over, and that usually means he's clutching his heart and bending over at the same time. So both of these mean to bend over, very often because of pain, but they could be because of laughter as well. I think we can even say keeled over due to laughter, but both of them are very often used for pain, and that's why it's in this chapter. No, this one was health, but there we go. It's about pain, take my word for it, very often. Now, if something is wasting away, then they're getting thinner and thinner and thinner until they disappear. So, I mean, a person who's not eating properly wastes away. Their limbs get thinner and thinner, and they get thinner and thinner and thinner, and it looks like it's not a good thing. They've got very little energy. And I wanted to remind you here about some other away phrasal verbs. If you while away the hours, then you fritter away the hours. You waste them doing something or other. You idle away the hours. And if something withers away, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner until it disappears. A plant can wither away, but a person could even wither away if they're extremely depressed or sad and they're not eating properly. They may wither away. If you pick yourself up, you get up. Just means pick yourself up, get up. And that's all I've got on that one. So on to number 45. I've mentioned these ones quite a few times. I have been on at you about these phrasal verbs more or less every lesson for the last 50 lessons. They all mean nag, yeah? Well, they have slight nuances, but if your mum is on at you about about cutting your hair, or if your dad is banging on at you about the conflict in the Middle East, it means they cannot stop talking about this topic, and they keep talking and talking and talking about this topic, very often as a complaint to nag at you. But if they're waffling on about, then it's boring. If they're rabbiting on about, they're just talking a lot. If they're droning on about, then it's droning on at you about something, then it means it's very boring as well. Drone is a boring way of speaking. So all of these are phrasal verbs of speaking. Never forget these phrasal verbs of speaking. They're so useful. And I could make that list at least, I could probably put about 20 verbs in this list, I think. I've got 6, but I think there's at least another 14 that would fit into the same pattern. So make sure you know that one. If you go through an exercise, you go through the questions one by one. If you run someone through a list, then you take them through a list. And it just means explain the list and go through it one by one. So I am running through chapters 41 to 45. Yeah, I am taking you through these chapters. Now, I try not to gloss over the details, and that just means to ignore usually the bad things, the disadvantages. And so politicians will gloss over the negative things that they maybe ought to tell you about. Maybe they have a new policy and they tell you about all the wonderful things that will happen in because of this policy, and they gloss over the inconvenient truth. They gloss over the disadvantages of the policy. Yeah, they sweep aside the criticisms concerning the policy. So very similar to sweep aside, gloss over. If you engage someone in a conversation, that's a formal way of saying you strike up a conversation with someone. Strike up a conversation just means start a conversation, but it's informal. Engage someone in a conversation is formal. If the police have a suspect and they want to know exactly what happened on the night of the crime, they might try and interrogate that suspect, and they might try and wring the truth out of that subject. Wring the truth out of that suspect. And wring, by the way, if you go into a swimming pool and your jumpers all, maybe you were wearing your jumper, somebody pushed you in maybe, you might get out and then wring your jumper. And that's what wring means. It means turn the jumper so that all the water falls out of the jumper. You can see why we say wring the truth out of a suspect. The police are trying to wring the truth out of that suspect. You can also say drag the truth out of the suspect. Okay, if somebody reels off a list of names, they just say the whole list of names. Reel off is always for lists. Don't confuse it with reel in, which we use for when you reel in customers. Yeah, you try and reel in customers because you want to drum up some business. If the journalist bombards the politician with questions, they give them loads of questions. They ask one question, then another question. They fire away with loads of questions. If somebody talks at you, that means they're not listening to you. So I'm talking at you really at the moment. I'm not listening to you guys, I'm just talking at you. But normally this is negative, yeah? If somebody talks at you, it means they're not interested in what you have to say. They're just interested in what they have to say, and they enjoy talking at you and not to you. Remember that when you throw a ball at someone, it's aggressive, it's nasty. But when you throw a ball to someone, they catch it. So exactly the same with talk to someone, it's nice. Talk at someone and you're just you're putting your opinion on them and you don't care at all about what they think. If somebody blurts out a secret, usually it's a secret, it means they've revealed something which should have been kept hidden. And this is always, with blurt out, you say something which shouldn't have been said, and immediately you think, I shouldn't have said that. It's actually very true that human beings, we like to think that our mind controls our body, but actually our tongue has a mind of its own, and we seem to speak much quicker than we think. And so our tongue very often has a habit, a nasty habit, of blurting out secrets. If somebody expands or asks you to expand on your plan for the company, they just want you to elaborate, to give more details about the plan for the company. So expand on just means to give more details, and maybe one of you students might say, Dave, I didn't quite understand wring the truth out of someone. Can you expand on that, please? Can you elaborate? Now, if you have a big speech and you dry up in the middle of the speech, it basically means you forget your words, you forget what you were planning to say, and you go, and you just dry up and you've got nothing to say. If you clam up, same thing, but because you're shy, not because you've forgotten your words. So some people are very shy and they clam up when they have to speak in public. Now, if you sound someone out, that means you ask for their opinion about something. So maybe you want to buy a house, but you decide to sound your parents out first. And it means you ask your parents for their opinion first of all. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea, maybe you should wait another 6 months before buying a property. You sound your parents out first, see what they say, and then sound your friends out. So this always means to get someone's opinion about something. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. I hope that's all clear. I hope I haven't spoken too quickly. I don't like it when people speak English quickly. Personally, I think it's very bad style. But can you see how many phrasal verbs I have here? That's a lot, and so it's not easy for me to go very slowly. If I go very slowly, it will be like I'm teaching beginners, and clearly this is an advanced lesson. So I have to go quickly, and I want you to remember as many of these as possible, and I think it's better if I go quickly for that reason. However, in any public speech, I recommend that you go slowly and take pauses and think about what you say before you actually say it. That's a better way of speaking. Okay, thanks very much for watching this video and taking all these new phrasal verbs in. I hope that you start using them in your everyday lives. Thanks very much for watching. If you like the video, click a like, subscribe, whatever, and I'll see you all next time.